So we are reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. We are on chapter 5, page number 53 of the PDF.
Catherine's whisper grew louder. I have no faith in these people. No faith in which people? I queried. In the masters. No faith? No, I have lack of faith. That's why my life has been so difficult. I had no faith in that lifetime. She was calmly evaluating her 18th century life. I asked her what she had learned in that lifetime.
So again, what she's saying is very clear, that she's very clearly stating that because I had no faith in that particular lifetime, I had a much more difficult life. So again, this brings us back to the same thing that we've been talking about, where we want that we go into a state of flow. We start allowing things to happen rather than forcing them to happen. When we have faith, that is the time that we can start trusting. We can shift from the state of controlling into trusting, right? So that's what she's saying over here. That if I had faith in the masters, then my life would not have been so difficult.
I learned about anger and resentment, about harboring your feelings towards people. I also had to learn that I have no control over my life. I want control, but I don't have any. I must have faith in the masters. They will guide me throughout. But I did not have faith. I felt like I was doomed from the beginning. I never looked at things very pleasantly. We must have faith. We must have faith. And I doubt. I choose to doubt instead of believe. She paused.
So where does the doubt come? The doubt comes when we are operating from the small guy, okay, when we are operating from the ego, because the ego is self-centered. It is never all-encompassing. Whenever we operate from the big guy, you will find that the variation or the the lack of trust, the lack of integrity will not be there. And again, it is also a matter of if we can consciously be aware as to which side of the grid we are operating from, right? I think that is the simplest and the best tool for us. Where are we operating from? If we can get that, then automatically everything starts to fall into place.
What should you do, and I do, to make ourselves better? Are our paths the same? I asked. The answer came from the masters who last week had spoken of intuitive powers and of returning from comas. The voice, the style, the tone were all different from both Catherine's and from the masculine, poetic master who had just spoken.
So again, when we are going into these states, we connect with the masters, then automatically, because we are connecting with that higher rate of frequency, our intuitive powers and ability to perceive is automatically going to start getting enhanced.
Everybody's path is basically the same. We all must learn certain attitudes while we are in physical state. Some of us are quicker to accept them than others. Charity, hope, faith, love. We must all know these things and know them well. It's not just one hope and one faith and one love. So many things feed into each one of these. There are so many ways to demonstrate them. And yet, we've only tapped into a little bit of each one.
So again, when you look at this, right, charity, hope, faith, love, all these are operating on the right side of the grid. And all of us are basically on the same path. What is that path? To go into wholeness, to connect with the total Godhead. That is the path that all of us are in. The only thing is that we are not I mean, when we are not operating on the right side of the grid, we are not operating for the well-being of everyone concerned, except we are operating from the ego-centered self, which is only bothered about what the self wants. That is where the problem starts to come up. Okay. And ultimately, we all have to learn love, faith, harmony, uh, charity, for that matter, looking out for other people. This is what we need to look at ultimately.
People of the religious orders have come closer than any of us have because they've taken these vows of chastity and obedience. They've given up so much without asking for anything in return. The rest of us continue to ask for rewards and justifications for our behavior. When there are no rewards that we want, the reward isn't doing, but doing without expecting anything, doing unselfishly.
So basically, what is it saying, right? You're doing it because it's your ikigai. Now, what did we learn in ikigai? We saw 4 tenets in ikigai. Number one, whatever you do should be your passion. Number two, you should be good at doing it. It must be something that the world wants, and you must be compensated for it. You must be paid for it in some way or the other, right? So when you look at it, if the priests are doing, if they are really enjoying what they are doing, then there is no problem. They have a better chance of really achieving that godhead that they are wanting to achieve. But if there is a question mark in what they are doing and how they are being, then again there becomes an issue. So I think this is more to do with ikigai, right? We are not looking for any reward as such, but we are doing it because we are passionate about what we are doing. Okay.
I have not learned that, Catherine added in her soft whisper. For a moment, I was confused by the word chastity, but I remembered that the root meant pure, referring to a much different state from that of just sexual abstinence. Not to overindulge, she continued, anything done to excess, in excess. You will understand, you really do understand. She paused again.
So again,
I,
everything has to have a balance, right? If anything is overdone, then it becomes a problem. And ultimately, see, when there is flow, when there is harmony in your life, most of the time we land up creating our problems for no use whatsoever, right? Because the ego starts coming into the picture, and that's what really creates the problem for us.
I'm trying, I added. Then I decided to focus on Catherine. Perhaps the masters had not yet left. What can I do to best help Catherine to overcome her fears and anxieties and to learn her lessons? Is this the best way, or should I change something or follow up in a specific area? How can I help her the best?
So naturally, he is looking at how he can help her.
The answer came in the deep voice of the poet master. I leaned forward in my chair. You are doing what is correct, but this is for you, not for her. Once again, the message was that this was for my benefit more than for Catherine's. For
So
me,
again, the point here is very clear, right? Whenever a teacher is teaching or a therapist is treating, always the therapist is also getting the benefit, provided the consciousness with which they are operating is at a higher state, right? If they are operating from the ego state, then they are doing, it is not happening. And that's where the problem comes. So, over here, very clearly, the poetic master is saying that this experience is as much for you as it is for her, but it is more for you.
yes, what we say is for you. Not only was he referring to Catherine in the third person, but he said we. There were indeed several master spirits in attendance.
So always there are many spirits around. This is something which is a given.
Can I know your names? I asked immediately, wincing at the mundane nature of my question. I need guidance. I have so much to know. The answer was a love poem, a poem about my life and my death. The voice was soft and tender, and I felt the loving detachment of a universal spirit. I listened in awe. You will be guided in time. You will be guided in time. When you accomplished what you have been sent here to accomplish, then your life will be ended, but not before then. You have much time ahead of you, much time.
So again, once we have finished what we intended to do here, that is when we transcend. Okay, so in the Vedantic principle, it is when you've finished your para vasanas and that has been exhausted, you leave this physical life existence.
I was simultaneously anxious and relieved. I was glad he was not more specific. Catherine was becoming restless. She spoke in a small whisper. I'm falling, falling, trying to find my life, falling. She sighed, and I did too. The masters were gone. I pondered the miraculous messages, very personalized messages from very spiritual sources. The implications were overwhelming. The light after death and the life after death, our choosing when we are born and when we will die, the sure and unerring guidance of the masters, lifetimes measured in lessons learned and tasks fulfilled, not in years. Charity, hope, faith, and love, doing what without expectations of return. This knowledge was for me. But for what purpose? What was I sent here to accomplish?
So again, what is our life's purpose? That's the big question, which is most spiritual seekers are looking for. And there is life after death. We are born, we decide when we will be born. We actually come here with our agenda. Whether we achieve our agenda or not, that's a big question. Once we achieve our agenda, we can transcend. And then, of course, again, operating from the right side of the grid, charity, hope, faith, love. These are what we are meant to connect with.
The dramatic messages and events cascading upon me in the office mirrored deep changes in my personal and family life. The transformation gradually crept into my awareness. For example, I was driving with my son to a college baseball game when we became stuck in a huge traffic jam. I have always been annoyed by traffic jams, and now we would miss the first inning or two as well. I was aware of not being annoyed. I wasn't projecting the blame on some incompetent driver. My neck and shoulder muscles were relaxed. I didn't take out my irritation on my son, and we were passing the time talking to each other. I became aware of just wanting to spend a happy afternoon with Jordan, watching a game we both enjoy. The goal of the afternoon was to spend time together. If I had become annoyed and angry, the whole outing would have been ruined.
So again, maintaining our equanimity, right? What is it that creates a flutter in our field? That is what we need to be aware of. And basically, when we are getting into these spiritual states of consciousness, the irritability in the field drops. The ability of the system to be in resilience starts to go up. And many times when you're really on the path, what happens is that you don't even notice it and things start to shift.
I would look at my children and my wife and wonder if we had been together before. Had we chosen to share the trials and tragedies and joys of this life? Were we ageless? I felt a great love and tenderness towards them. I realized that their flaws and faults are minor. These are not really so important. Love is.
So at the end, only love is real, right? The rest of it is all ego, it is all drama. And once we drop the drama, then only love will remain.
I even found myself overlooking my own flaws for the same reasons. I didn't need to try to be perfect or in control all the time. There really was no need to impress anyone.
So again, this is a basic point of attempting to look good all the time. The main issue here is that we need to start feeling good. We need to feel that, feel the love, feel that equanimity, feel that peace within. Most of the time, we are dressing up, or we are putting makeup, or we are standing in a particular way, or we are doing something in a particular way, all to look good. It is not our ikigai, it is not our passion, but just to look good, we will end up doing things, and that always ends up creating problems for us.
Here, Katherine is not there. Where is she?
No, this Catherine is there. She's on the table, but he is mulling on his own thoughts about what has happened.
I would look at my children and my wife and wonder if we had been together before. I even found myself overlooking my own flaws for the same reasons. I didn't need to try to be perfect or in control all the time. There really was no need to impress anyone.
So another thing, self-criticism is something that needs to drop. We are very critical of ourselves. We need to do something about what we feel that we are not doing rather than keeping on criticizing ourselves. That is something that we really need to drop.
I was very glad that I could share this experience with Carol. We would often talk after dinner and sort out my feelings and reactions to Catherine's sessions. Carol had an analytical mind and is very well grounded. She knew how driven I was to pursue the experience with Catherine in a careful, scientific manner, and she would play the devil's advocate to help me look at this information objectively. As the critical evidence mounted that Catherine was indeed revealing great truths, Carol felt and shared my apprehensions and my joys.
So again, we are moving into uncharted territory. So naturally, there is some amount of apprehension.
Chapter 7. When Catherine arrived for her next appointment 1 week later, I was ready to play the tape of last week's incredible dialogue. After all, she was providing me with celestial poetry in addition to past life recall. I told her that she had related information from after death experiences, even though she had no memory at all of the in between or spiritual state. She was reluctant to listen, overwhelmingly improved and happier. She had no need to listen to this material. Besides, it was all somewhat eerie.
So again, when you're not used to these things, it takes a time for you to settle in and actually listen to it and to understand these things. That's why personal experience of these states of consciousness become very important. Now, Catherine has no experience of those in-between states. She has no experience at all of it, but she's improved because something has triggered and something has shifted in her biofield or in her physical body or in her state of mind, but she is not consciously aware of it.
I prevailed upon her to listen. It was wonderful, beautiful, uplifting, and it came through her. I wanted to share it with her. She listened to her soft whisper on the tape for only a few minutes, and then she made me turn it off. She said that it was too weird and made her uncomfortable. Silently, I remembered, this is for you, not for her.
So again, many times messages will come through for other people when we are going into these altered states.
I wondered how long these sessions would continue because she was improving every week. Now only a few ripples remained in her once turbulent pond. She was still afraid of enclosed places, and the relationship with Stuart was still literally touch and go. Otherwise, her progress was remarkable.
So every time the shifting is a one step at a time, right? You can't expect like everything thunderbolts and thing won't happen. There's a gradual shift which automatically takes place.
We had not had a traditional psychotherapy session for months. None was necessary. We would chat for a few minutes to catch up on the events of the week, then move quickly to the hypnotic regression. Whether due to the actual memories of major traumas or daily mini traumas or to the process of reliving the experiences. Catherine was virtually cured. Her phobias and panic attacks had just about disappeared. She had no fear of death or dying. She was no longer afraid of losing control. Psychiatrists are now using high doses of tranquilizers and antidepressant medicines to treat people with Catherine's symptoms.
So again, most psychiatrists, they depend on drugs, and drugs in the long run, in the really long run, may not be a good idea always, right? If we can find better means of handling it, then it is better. For short term, drugs are all right, but that's my view again, right? But again, the doctor has to take a call as to what they want to do.
In addition to the medicines, the patients are also often in intensive psychotherapy or attending phobia group therapy sessions. Many psychiatrists believe that symptoms such as Catherine's have a biological basis, that there are deficiencies in one or several brain chemicals.
So of course, if there are deficiencies in certain brain chemicals, it can create a issue.
As I hypnotized Catherine to a deep trance state, I thought about how remarkable and wonderful it was that in a period of weeks, without the use of medicines, traditional therapy, or group therapy, she was nearly cured. This was not just the suppression of symptoms, nor the gritting of teeth and living through it, a life racked by fears. This was a cure, the absence of symptoms, and she was radiant, serene, and happy beyond my wildest hopes.
So again, it's not always about suppressing the symptoms. It is more about transcending the symptoms in my view.
Her voice was a soft whisper again. I'm in a building, something with a domed ceiling. The ceiling is blue and gold. There are other people with me. They're dressed in old, some type of robe, very old and dirty. I don't know how we got there. There are many figures in the room. There are also some pieces standing on some stone structure. There's a large gold figure at one end of the room. He appears. He's very large with wings. He's very evil. It's very hot in the room. Very hot. It's hot because there are no openings into the room. We have to stay away from the village. There's something wrong with us. Are you sick? Yes, we are all sick. I don't know what it is we have, but our skin dies. It becomes very black. I feel very cold. The air is very dry, very stale. We cannot return to the village. We must stay out. Some of the faces are deformed.
So that naturally some kind of illness has taken over.
This disease sounds terrible, like leprosy. If she had once had a glamorous lifetime, we had not yet stumbled across it. How long do you have to stay there? Forever, she answered gloomily, until we die. There is no cure for this. Do you know the name of the illness? What is it called? No, the skin gets very dry and shrivels up. I have been there for years. There are others who have just arrived. There is no way back. We have been cast out to die. She suffered a wretched existence living in a cave. We must hunt for our food. I see some type of wild beast that we are hunting for, with horns. He's brown with horns, big horns. Does anybody visit you? No, they cannot go near or they will suffer from the evil too. We have been cursed for some evil we have done, and this is our punishment. The sands of her theology were constantly shifting in the hourglass of her lives. Only after death, in the spiritual state, was there a welcome and reassuring constancy. Do you know what year it is? We have lost track of time. We are sick. We just await our death. Is there no hope? I felt the infectious despair. There is no hope. We will all die. And there is much pain in my hands. My whole body is weak. I am old. It is difficult for me to move. What happens when you cannot move anymore? You are moved to another cave and you're left there to die. What do they do with the dead? They seal the entrance to the cave. Do they ever seal a cave before the person is dead? I was searching for a clue to her fear of enclosed places. I do not know. I have never been there. I'm in the room with all other people. It's very hot. I'm against the wall, just lying there. What is this room for? It is for the worship. Many gods. It's very hot. I advanced her in time. I see something white. I see something white, some type of canopy. They're moving somebody. Is it you? I don't know. I will welcome death. My body is in so much pain. Catherine's lips were drawn thin in pain and she was panting because of the heat in the cave. I took her to the day of her death. She was still panting. Is it hard to breathe? I asked. Yes, so hot in here. Feels so hot. Very dark. I can't see. And I can't move. She was dying, paralyzed and alone in the hot, dark cave. The mouth of the cave was already sealed shut. She was frightened and miserable. Her breathing grew more rapid and irregular, and she mercifully died, ending this anguished life. I feel very light, like I'm floating. It's very bright here. It's wonderful. Are you in pain? No, she paused, and I awaited the masters. Instead, she was whisked away. I'm falling very fast. I'm going back to her body. She seemed as surprised as I was. I see buildings, buildings with round columns. There are many buildings. We are outside. There are trees, olive trees around. It's very beautiful. We are watching something. People have on very funny masks. These cover their faces. It is some festivities. They're dressed in long robes and they have masks that cover their faces. They pretend to be what they're not. They are on a platform above where we sit. Are you watching a play? Yes. What do you look like? Look at yourself. I have brown hair. My hair is in a braid. She paused. Her description of herself and the presence of olive trees reminded me of Catherine's Greek-like lifetime 1500 years before Christ, when I was her teacher, Diogenes. I decided to investigate. Do you know the date? No. Are there people with you that you know? Yes, my husband is sitting next to me. I do not know him in her present lifetime. Do you have children? I am with child now. The choice of words was interesting, somehow ancient and not at all like Catherine's conscious style.
So again, when you're going into those states, we can start speaking like that. We may start speaking some other language which you are not physically aware of consciously in this lifetime also.
Is your father there? I do not see him. You are there somewhere, but not with me. So I was right. We were back 35 centuries. What do I do there? You are just watching, but you teach. You teach. We have learned from you. Squares and circles, funny things. Diogenes, you are there. What else do you know of me? You are old. Somehow we are related. You are my mother's brother. Do you know others of the family? I know your wife and your children. You have two sons. You have sons. Two of them are older than I. My mother has died. She died very young. Has your father raised you? Yes, but I am married now. You're expecting a baby? Yes, I'm afraid. I do not want to die while the baby is born. Did that happen to your mother? Yes. And you're afraid it will happen to you also? It happens many times. Is this your first child? Yes, I'm frightened. I expect it soon. I'm very big. It is uncomfortable for me to move. It is cold. She had moved herself ahead in time. The baby was about to be born. Katherine had never had a baby, and I had not delivered any in the 14 years since my obstetrics rotation in medical school. Where are you? I inquired. I'm lying on something stone. It's very cold. I'm having pain. Somebody must help me. Somebody must help me. I told her to breathe deeply. The baby would be born without pain. She was panting and groaning at the same time. The labor lasted several more agonizing minutes, and then her child was born. She had a daughter. Do you feel better now? Very weak. So much blood. Do you know what you will name her? No, I'm too tired. I want my baby. Your baby is here. I outlived a little girl. Yes, my husband is pleased. She was exhausted. I instructed her to take a short nap and to awaken refreshed. After a minute or two, I awakened her from the nap. Do you feel better now? Yes, I see animals. They are carrying something on their backs. They have baskets on them. There are many things in the baskets: food, some red fruits. Is it a pretty land? Yes, with much food. Do you know the name of the land? What do you call it when a stranger asks you the name of the village? Cathenia. Cathenia. It sounds like a Greek town, I prompted. I don't know that. Do you know what? You have been away from the village and returned. I have not. This was a twist. Since in that lifetime I was her uncle, older and wiser, she was asking me if I knew the answer to my own question. Unfortunately, I did not have access to that information. Have you lived all your life in the village? I asked. Yes, she whispered. But you travel, so you can know what you teach. You travel to learn the land, the different trade routes, so you can put them down and make maps. You are old. You go with the younger people because you understand the charts. You are very wise. Which charts do you mean? Charts of the stars? You. You understand the symbols. You can help them to make maps. Do you recognize other people from the village? I do not know them, but I know you. All right, how is our relationship? Very good. You are very kind. I like to just sit next to you. It's very comforting. You have helped us. You have helped my sisters. There comes a time, though, when I must leave you, for I am old. No, she was not ready to deal with my death. I see some bread, flat bread, very flat and thin. Are people eating the bread? Yes, my father and my husband and I, and other people in the village. What is the occasion? It is some festival. It is your father. Is it your father there? Yes. Is your baby there? Yes, but she's not with me. She is with my sister. Look closely at your sister, I suggested, looking for that recognition of a significant person in Catherine's current life. Yes, I do not know her. Do you recognize your father? Yes, yes, Edward. There are figs and olives, and red fruit. There is flat bread, and they have killed some sheep. They are roasting the sheep. There was a long pause. I see something white. She had again progressed herself in time. It's a white, it's a square box. It's where they put people when they die. Did someone die? Then? Yes, my father. I don't like to look at him. I don't want to see him. Do you have to look? Yes, they will take him away to bury him. I feel very sad. Yes, I know. How many children do you have? The reporter in me was not letting her breathe. I have three, two boys and a girl. After dutifully answering my questions, she returned to her grief. They have put his body under something, under some cover. She seemed very sad. Have I died by this time too? No, we are drinking some grapes. Grapes in a cup. What do I look like now? You are very, very old. Are you feeling better yet? No, when you die, I'll be alone. Have you outlived your children? They will take care of you. But you know so much. She sounded like a little girl. You will get by. You know a lot too. You'll be safe, I assured her, and she appeared to be resting peacefully. Are you more peaceful? Where are you now? I don't know. She had apparently crossed over into the spiritual state, even though she had not experienced her death in that lifetime. This week we had gone through two lifetimes in considerable detail. I awaited the masters, but Catherine continued to rest. After several more minutes of waiting, I asked if she could talk to the master spirits. I have not reached that plane, she explained. I cannot speak until I do. She never did reach that plane. After much waiting, I brought her out of her trance.
So reaching that plane is a state of consciousness, right? So again, experiences, it becomes very real for you when you're in that particular experience.
Chapter 8. 3 weeks passed before our next session. On my vacation, lying on a tropical beach, I had the time and distance to reflect on what had transpired with Catherine. Hypnotic regression to past lives with detailed observations and explanations of objects, processes, and facts which she had no knowledge of in her normal waking state. Improvement in her symptoms through the regressions. Improvement not even remotely achieved by conventional psychotherapy over the first 18 months of treatment. Chillingly accurate revelations from the after death spiritual state, conveying knowledge she had no access to. Spiritual poetry and lessons about the dimensions after death, about life and death, birth and rebirth, from master spirits who spoke with a wisdom and a style beyond Catherine's capabilities. There was indeed a lot to contemplate.
So again, psychotherapy takes years of processing. It's not something that, you can do it one time and go out. So again, when we are going into altered states, these things automatically start to get clear. That is my view on that.
Over the years, I had treated many hundreds, perhaps thousands, of psychiatric patients, and they reflected the entire spectrum of emotional disorders. I had directed inpatient units at four major medical schools. I had spent years in psychiatric emergency rooms, outpatient clinics, and various other settings evaluating and treating outpatients. I knew all about the auditory and visual hallucinations and the delusions of schizophrenia. I had treated many patients with borderline syndromes and hysterical character disorders, including split or multiple personalities. I had been a career teacher in drug and alcohol abuse funded by the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and I was very familiar with the gamut of drug effects on the brain.
So again, all sorts of things he has naturally experienced, right? And the drugs, all the drugs mostly that we are getting is a synthesization of chemicals which are produced by the body naturally. Okay, and then when we have it, then the dosage, the timing, etc., is not perfectly timed as the body can time them. That's why there are always after effects with drugs.
Catherine had none of these symptoms or syndromes. What had occurred was not a manifestation of psychiatric illness. She was not psychotic, not out of touch with reality, and she had never suffered from hallucinations, seeing or hearing things not actually there, or delusions, false beliefs. She did not use drugs and she had no sociopath traits. She did not have a hysterical personality and she did not have dissociative tendencies. That is, she was generally aware of what she was doing and thinking, did not function on automatic pilot, and had never had any split or multiple personalities. The material she produced was often beyond her conscious capabilities in both style and content. Some of it was particularly psychic, such as the references to specific events and facts from my own past. That is, the knowledge about my father and my son, as well as from her known. She had knowledge that she had never had access to or accumulated in her present life. This knowledge, as well as the whole experience, was alien to her culture and upbringing and contrary to many of her beliefs. Catherine, in a relatively simple and honest person, she is not a scholar and she could not have invented the facts, details, historical events, descriptions, and poetry that came through her. As a psychiatrist, a scientist, I was certain that the material originated from some portion of her unconscious mind. It was real beyond any doubt. Even if Catherine were a skilled actress, she could not have recreated these happenings. The knowledge was too accurate and too specific, lying beyond her capacity.
So all the time he is repeating beyond her capacity. When we go into altered states, all our capacities start to expand.
I pondered the therapeutic purpose of exploring Catherine's past lives. Once we had stumbled into this new realm, her improvement was dramatically rapid, without any medicine. There is some powerful curative force in this realm, a force apparently much more effective than conventional therapy or modern medicines.
So again, as soon as we go into altered states of consciousness, healing automatically starts to take place.
The force includes remembering and reliving not just momentous traumatic events, but also the daily insults to our bodies, minds, and egos. In my questions as we scan lifetimes, I was looking for the patterns of these insults. Patterns such as chronic emotional or physical abuse, poverty and starvation, illness and handicaps, persistent persecution and prejudice, repeated failures, and so on. I also kept an eye out for those more piercing tragedies, such as a traumatic death experience, rape, mass catastrophe, or any other horrifying event that might leave a permanent imprint. The technique was similar to reviewing a childhood in conventional therapy, except that the time frame was several thousand years, rather than the usual 10 or 15 years. Therefore, my questions were more direct and more leading than in conventional therapy. But the success of our unorthodox exploration was unquestionable. She and others I later would treat with hypnotic regression was being cured with tremendous rapidity.
So naturally, this can work better and cure people faster than regular psychotherapy.
But were there other explanations for Catherine's past life memories? Could the memories be carried in her genes? This possibility is scientifically remote. Genetic memory requires the unbroken passage of genetic material from generation to generation.
So now
That
this is what they are saying is that it has to be physically transferred. But then again, with Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic field, we find that the information is always available to us, provided we are in a state of consciousness to be able to tap into it.
Catherine lived all over the earth and her genetic line was interrupted repeatedly. She would die in a flood with her offspring, or be childless, or die in her youth. Her genetic pool ended and was not transmitted. And what of her survival after death and the in between state? There was no body and certainly no genetic material, and yet her memories continue. No, the genetic explanation had to be discarded. What about Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of all human memory and experience that could somehow be tapped into? Divergent cultures often contain similar symbols even in dreams. According to Jung, the collective unconscious was not personally acquired but inherited somehow in the brain structure. It includes motives and images that spring anew in every culture without relying upon historical tradition or dissemination. I thought Catherine's memories were too specific to be explained by Jung's concept. She did not reveal symbols and universal images or motives. She related detailed descriptions of specific people and places. Jung's idea seemed too vague, and there was still the in between state to consider. All in all, reincarnation made most sense.
So in Jung's theory, he had some archetypal figures which used to come in, or archetypal symbols. And ultimately, he felt that everything is related to those symbols, right? But here he's saying that she's not talking in symbols. She's not having those images. She's having real life experiences, which is causing transformation in her state of being.
Catherine's knowledge was not only detailed and specific, but also beyond her conscious capacity. She knew things that could not be gleaned from a book and then temporarily forgotten. Her knowledge could not have been acquired in her childhood and then similarly suppressed or repressed from consciousness. And what about the masters and their messages? This came through Catherine but was not of Catherine. and their wisdom was also reflected in Catherine's memories of lifetimes. I knew that this information and these messages were true. I knew this not only from many years of careful study of people, their minds and brains and personalities, but I also knew this intuitively, even before the visit from my father and my son. My brain, with its years of careful scientific training, knew this, and my bones also knew. I see pots with some type of oil in them. Despite the 3 week hiatus, Catherine had quickly lapsed into a deep trance. She was enmeshed in another body in another time. There are different oils in the pots. It seems to be some type of storehouse or some place where they store things. The pots are red, made out of some type of red earth. They have blue bands around them, blue bands around the top. I see men there. There are men in the cave. They're moving the jars and the pots around, stacking them up and putting them in a certain area. Their heads are shaved. They have no hair on their heads. Their skin is brown, brown skin. Are you there? Yes, I'm sealing up some of the jars with some type of wax, sealing the top of the jars with the wax. Do you know what the oils are used for? I don't know. Do you see yourself? Look at yourself. Tell me what you look like. She paused as she observed herself. I have a braid. There's a braid in my hair. I have some type of long material garment on. It has a gold border around the outside. Do you work for these priests or the men with the shaved heads? It is my job to seal the jars with the wax. That's my job. But you don't know what the jars are used for? They appear to be used in some religious ritual, but I am not sure what it is. There's some anointing, something on the heads, something on your heads and your hands. Your hands. I see a bird, a gold bird that's around my neck. It's flat. It has a flat tail, a very flat tail, and its head is pointing down to my feet. To your feet? Yes, that's the way it must be worn. There's a black sticky substance. I don't know what it is. Where is it? It's in a marble container. They use that too, but I don't know what for. Is there anything in the cave for you to read so that you can tell me the name of the country, the place where you live, or the date? There's nothing on the walls, they're empty. I do not know the name. I progressed her in time. There's a white jar, some type of white jar. The handle on the top is gold and some type of gold inlay on it. What is in the jar? Some type of ointment. It has something to do with the passage into the other world. Are you the person to be passing now? No, it is no one I know. Is this your job too? To prepare people for this passage? No, the priest must do that, not me. We just keep them supplied with the ointments, the incense. About how old do you appear to be now? 16. Are you living with your parents? Yes. A stone house, some type of stone dwelling. It is not very large. It's very hot and dry. The climate is very hot. Go to your house. I am there. Do you see other people around in your family? I see a brother, and my mother is there, and a baby. Somebody's baby. Is that your baby? No. What is significant now? Go to something significant that explains your symptoms in your current lifetime. We need to understand. It is safe to experience it. Go to the events. She answered in a very soft whisper. Everything in time. I see people dying. People dying? Yes, they don't know what it is. An illness. Suddenly it dawned on me that she was again touching on an ancient lifetime, once that she had regressed to previously. In that lifetime, a waterborne plague had killed Catherine's father and one of her brothers. Catherine had also suffered from the illness, but she had not died from it. The people used garlic and other herbs to try to ward off the plague. Catherine had been upset because the dead were not being properly embalmed.
I think we can
Now,
stop here.